Hi everyone, I'm Matt, and welcome back to Toylytics, where we take a look at the analytics side of toy collecting. In this one, we've got one of the big boys. We're looking at the Arethyr wave and what those figures were selling for in the second half of 2023. So why don't we get into it? So looking at the figures themselves, you can see which figures were released here in the Arethyr wave. July 2019 is when the pre-order period started for this wave. This was right before I got into the line. I missed the pre-order here. This was the last pre-order that I missed. I was able to get some figures when they were available on Big Bad Toy Store before they sold out. But if you were around at this time, you also recall that this one had a pretty long wait. We had to wait for a while, I think until early 2021, mainly due to pandemic issues. But as you can see, the list of figures here, none of these have been re-released quite yet, right? We could say Balius is kind of being re-released with taking all of the tack and armor off of the Deacon horse in one of the upcoming waves. But regardless, none of these other ones have been re-released. So it's kind of interesting to look at the sales for these figures, because pretty much the only place you're able to find these is on the secondary market. So let's take a look at what they've been selling for. So the second half of 2023, total sales, 344 figures were sold from this wave, or releases. Let's say some of these aren't figures. We got hands and feet packs. We've got demon wings being sold by themselves, but 300 or so sales overall. This is much more than some of the other waves that we've already looked at, which were under 200, both of them. And if you recall from the first video, if you haven't watched any other videos on this channel, I encourage you to watch the first video where I kind of give you a channel introduction, where all this data comes from, and some of the rules that I used when I collected the data. I'll put that in a card in the upper corner if I remember. Hopefully I do. But anyway, you can take a look at that. We had about 4,600 sales total over this 6-month period, and the Arethyr wave accounted for 344 of them. Looking at the overall numbers here, you can see that we had 50 sales for Arethyr himself, pretty popular, as you might imagine. Athon himself, the horse, sold for 32 times. The 2-pack, not too many 2-packs sold, and then some of the other major figures sold around 20, high 20s to low 30s as well. So let's take a look at this breakdown by month. As you can see here, again, this, as I've said before, this data is going to be a little bit more interesting once I'm able to collect more of it, and we see this over multiple years, so we can see if there's any sort of seasonality or anything like that. But looking at Arethyr overall, you can see he pretty much sells pretty regularly, from about 7 units to 11 units per month. We had Belphegor, a lot of him sold 1 month 10, but pretty much everything else was around 4 to 6 or so. This one's Athon here, right? So he sold anywhere from about 4 to 7, and so on. So let's move on to the prices. So here are the prices overall. These are the average prices for each of these figures. The 2-pack, not surprisingly, is the most valuable, at least the selling for the highest price, about $250. Athon, 135, Arethyr 102. So, looking at this as the 2-pack being the combination of those two figures, 102 and 135 adds up to 237 or so, and you can see that the 2-pack is getting a little bit of a premium over that. Kind of makes sense. We wouldn't expect the 2-pack to sell anything less, because as we know, the 2-pack is pretty rare overall. So it's kind of in line with what we would expect as far as about a $12 premium. It's actually probably a little bit less than I would have thought as far as a premium is concerned, but you also have to remember that there aren't too many 2-packs being sold overall. So again, as we collect more data, we'll be able to get a better sense of what that value really is. Looking at some of the other figures then, Balius selling for 123, still really high. I would not recommend buying it for that much. I would just recommend saving some money and pre-ordering one of the Deacon horses, or as many of the Deacon horses as you want to, from one of the retailers that's out there. You may have to wait, or you will have to wait probably till the end of 2024 to get those, but you could probably get it for those figures are probably about, I don't know for sure. I think they're about $75 to $80. I'd rather say $40 than get them in hand right away. Looking at the other ones, we got Magnus here, very popular figure, selling for around 100. Hadriana, $90. Red Shield Soldier, another popular one, 88 70, Belphegor, Vorthog, Hellfire Goblin, kind of up in price. This was, if you've been watching these for a while, the Hellfire Goblin was always available pretty much close to retail, but not anymore. We'll kind of see that as we look at the individual sales themselves. And then we have Malifar, who always has kind of been the lowest price in the wave, but again, not selling for retail anymore, selling a little bit above retail on average. As far as some of the other accessories, we have the hands and feet, pretty high. Actually, those are selling for much higher than they actually were available for. Probably not too many of them were made, and the demon wings as well, selling pretty significant premium over their retail price. This turtle shell and bone sword may not be familiar to everyone. This isn't even listed on the Source Horseman website under the Arethyr wave, but it's my understanding that this was a special release or a gift that you got when you purchased some figures. I don't know how many, but maybe an all-in or maybe just purchased figures initially in the first day or maybe even the first hour when the Arethyr wave went up for sale. I don't know all the particulars, but it's something like that. So it's a pretty rare piece, and so just a shell and a sword selling for an average of $46. Again, not too many sales, but not surprising how high that is, based on the fact that not too many of them were available. Let's now look at the individual figures here, which are a little bit more interesting. I was looking at this in the past, so let me clear this filter here. Okay, so here are all of the sales for the Arethyr wave. Let's take a look at Aethon first. So here's the Aethon sales, and you can see that in general, he's been coming down in price a little bit. Right? So at the beginning of the data period, in the summer, he was selling for over 160 a lot of times, and as you could see in December, he was still selling for over 160, close to 170. But there were a lot of sales in November, right around a little bit after Legions Con. I don't know whether some people got a little bit more of him on hand based off of Legions Con or whatever, but there were a lot of opportunities to get him for sub 120. After that, though, he's been kind of creeping back up in price. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over time. All right, let's take a look at Arethyr. Got a lot of sales for him. Pretty stable along the way. No real trend here, right? So pretty much anywhere from $75 for some loose figures. That's what the circle point means, or repackaged figures. That's what the plus sign means. So up to about 85, and then a lot of newer figures are going to be 90 plus, all the way up to this one, $136.99. Seems pretty high, but in general, you can get him for around 120. I would say at the highest price. But pretty stable overall. All right, we'll look briefly at the 2-pack here. Not too many sales, but not too much of a variation in price either, right? So we went from 220. I guess there is some variation there. 220 up to 310. There was a repackaged one. It was kind of weird that somebody would have taken it out of the package and then repackaged it up. But I guess, if you just wanted the package and weren't really concerned that it was not factory sealed, I guess that's a pretty good sale then for right around $200. But in general, you can see that the 2-pack is selling about $240 plus whenever it does sell, but not very often, and we go like a month or so between sales in some instances. Okay, let's look at Balius. As we said, probably not the best time to buy a Balius. I would buy the Deacon instead. But if you do want one and need one right now, you're probably looking at somewhere around 120 to 160. That's what they have been selling for. You could have gotten some loose ones earlier in the summer for this one was a really good deal, right? $73.50. But for sub 100 or right around 100, maybe around 110. But since then, haven't been too many sales that are sub 120. Okay. Take a look at Belphegor, one of my favorites from the wave. Always like that head sculpt. And here, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? So we had a lot of sales in September and October, even of new figures, what the square means, from $55 to $65. But you can see after that, the price hasn't really been much south of 65. 67 is probably the best price, other than this one loose figure that was sold just above 50. But pretty much since beginning of November, you can't really get a Belphegor for under $70 too often. So he's creeping up. If you want one, might be a good time to get one if you see him at a good price. If you see him for 70 or less, I would probably pull the trigger if you're looking to add him to your collection. I'm going to go briefly through the wings, right? So a few of these demon wings sold, pretty much, from $32 to $38. Those are the blue ones. We'll look at the red ones here too. Red seem to be a little bit more popular. A few more of them available. Lower price overall too. So a loose set here sold for around 26, but other ones are selling from anywhere from 28 up to $38 or so. This one was a really high. Somebody really overpaid, it seems, for these for 47 or 48 back in August. Okay, let's look at another character here. We got Hadriana. So Hadriana, kind of all over the place too as far as sales are concerned, but for right now she's actually not too high. Overall, she's selling on average between about $65 or so, maybe 67, up to about 110. So anywhere in there is probably where you can get her. There were a few sales here that were pretty significant outliers here for 142, 149.99, 150, but pretty much 110 is the max price for her over this entire 6-month period, other than those two possible outliers. Hands and feet, again, we'll look at these real quick. Not too many sales on these. So we've got anywhere from 28 to somebody paid $58 for those, but not too many have sold recently. These are the orc? Oh no, these are the human feet. Let's look at the orc feet too. They're listed separately. The orc feet, a few more sales on the orc feet. Real low price here for a repackaged one for $16, but basically everything else is between 33 and about 45. Sold a little bit more often than the human feet. It's weird to talk about selling human feet, but anyway. Hellfire Goblin. All right, so here's what we were talking about before a little bit. There was one sale here that's really looks to be a significant outlier of 154, but everything else is between right around retail price of 50 for some loose and repackaged figures, up to about 80. But look at since November, right? Since November, you can't get one for less than 60. So this is kind of going up. If you want a Hellfire Goblin, it's probably a good time to buy one if you see one for a good price. If you see ones definitely south of 60, that would be a good price for now, because not too many are available at that price anymore. All right, a few more to look at here. We've got Magnus, really popular figure ever since he came out, right? So lowest price here is around $70, upper price all the way up to double that, right? 140 or so. You can see that the most recent sales, we're looking anywhere from about 70 to around a little bit less than 120. So if you see a Magnus, if you're really interested in getting a Magnus, if you see one sub 100, probably not a bad price. If you see one for less than 85 or so, that's a pretty good price overall. Malifar, as we said, this has kind of always been one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, of the entire wave. You can see that some sales earlier on were less than retail price of 50, but everything else, right, you really can't scoop him up for less than 50 now. So if you see one for retail, I would jump on it if you're interested in adding that blue demon guy to your collection. All right, a few more here. Red Shield Soldier. Red Shield Soldier's always been pretty popular, right? So lowest prices are around 60, highest prices even pretty recently in November sold for 114, but not a whole lot of sales overall too, and pretty spread out in between here. So not really any sort of trend that I can see from this data, just that there's a lot of variability in price. So you may want to try to wait for one that has a better listing if you see them that are pretty high right now. That Turtle Shell and Bone Sword, I guess we said a couple of them. Lowest price was $34.59. Some of them are selling for close to 50 or above 50 at this point, but not a lot of them for sale at all. So pretty hard to get your hands on that one since it was so limited. And then finally for the wave, another really popular character that a lot of people like is Vorthog. Let me keep him only here. Gonna get my picture out of the way, I guess. Well, I'm not able to get my picture out of the way to be able to select him. So, looking at these overall, you can see in the red that pretty stable prices, right? Between $50 and $100. The newer figures, the squares are the new ones. He's selling somewhere around 80 or 90. Loose figures selling for closer to 60. So lots of sales, right? Pretty popular character. A lot of Vorthogs available. If you're looking for a new one, seems like around $70 or so would be a pretty good price, because other than that, right, he's been pretty high recently. So 91, there's 70 for the newest one's probably the cheapest one recently. This one was 70 as well. All right, but 79, 85, 76, and this loose one for 57. So if you're interested in the loose one, maybe want to pick one up for hopefully close to around 55 or 60. But if you want a new one, probably 70 is what you're looking at. So that's it for the 6-month analysis of the Arethyr sales. I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, I'm going through wave by wave. I also have Figura Obscura. I also have Cosmic Legions coming up too. I'm preparing those charts as well to go through, but I'm working my way through the rest of the Mythic Legions waves as fast as I can, because I know that this data is pretty timely, and it's important to get these out as fast as we can, talking about the sales over the past 6 months. So please like, subscribe, what everybody else says. If you like this video and you want to see more, I'll keep making them as long as people keep watching them. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will see you again on the next one.